No idea.
The one
we can load the ice training.
Yeah. What's the name?
Load mission is I can't remember the name.
Loading up.
It's on Malden.
Why the literal fuck does my does CIA no longer pop up in my recent tab?
No idea.
Well, actually, nothing pops up there.
I think the server didn't load correctly. I see nothing on Malden.
Check the RPT file.
Oh wait! I was checking the wrong Malden.
Yeah, Malden 2025.
Is it still included in COP terrain?
The original one, yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to just remove it?
No, it
I'll
doesn't
be
work.
right back.
If we removed it, then all missions that were made for it would cease to work.
We have none. Oh! You mean on the community?
Yeah.
Right.
I think those are it's one group, so it's probably only one is getting a long range radio.
Don't need that.
The structures have Zeus access as well.
I'm back.
Anyone not on the server yet? How's Jeep handled in this scenario?
Should work without a problem.
On the group leader or what?
No base.
Okay. Channel switch imminent. We didn't list navigation, did we?
What do you mean?
On our topics.
I don't know, to be honest. Do you have a thread for it?
Quick. No, it was just in the chat. Hang on. All right, let's start. I'll do the first part. Mekman, Sempri, Vernon, you here?
All here.
Yeah.
Channel 2, Chuck.
Check.
Guess we should all switch.
Channel 2. More people on channel 2. Switching to channel 2. You guys stay.
Roger.
Everybody knows how to switch channel?
I think
Yeah.
I unbind the key.
No, it's... To switch channels, you don't need to bind any keys. You just open your self-interaction menu. You go to radios. You select the radios you want to interface with, and then select Open Radio. Then you see a hovering model of it. To switch a channel,
Yeah.
you simply left-click to switch up. You see that big black knob?
Yeah,
on
I
the
see.
middle?
I switched already. I can switch to 1.
Yeah, left-click to switch up, right-click to switch down. That's it.
All right.
But switch to 2, Macman.
I'm on 2 now. I'm on 2
Okay.
now.
Yeah. You can also decrease and increase the volume there on the left knob. Alright, so the first topic of the day would be... what it would be. Alright, it would be movement. So, let me see what we have here. Okay, so first rule when you are a team leader and you're having a group of people following you is not to keep yourself in their field of view. That means several things. First and foremost, the most important thing is do not sprint unless necessary. You have to under the combat conditions. You just keep on a jogging pace. That allows people that are falling behind, have to stop, have to maneuver around an obstacle, to catch up with you by sprinting themselves. If you sprint, they can't catch up. Also, as a team leader, you don't usually carry heavy equipment. That means that you have to cater for the other team members' stamina. It means that you have to bear in mind when you're traversing through large areas, that other people's fatigue might be a concern before it becomes a concern for you. So bear that in mind and have constant check from time to time. You might have people that are neglecting to mention that they are fatiguing. Alright, so I have a couple of rules. I have a couple of guidelines I set for myself when in terms of formations, which will be the next topic. So when I move in the open, the two factors that affect what formation I choose is the terrain and the likelihood of direction of enemy contact. Okay, let's say we have no likelihood of enemy contact. That means that the easiest formation to follow would be
Column.
good man, Sempri. Column, because it's easier to follow the back of the neck of the person around you. You don't have to struggle keeping relative position according to him or her. So when we're moving, let's do a jog up there to the trucks on 300. So we're moving like this. I move like this, and I make sure I look to the right. If you're having a track IR, that's great. If you're moving with track IR, just look to the right. You make sure everybody are following. And again, I'm not sprinting, I'm jogging. Alright. So, can you easily transport us to a wooded area? Hopefully plain? I mean, flat?
Yeah, yeah.
But let's wait a second for MJ.
Oh. Vom Hasen getunnelt.
Send Jane. Should be in now.
Nice dance moves. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I see him.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. Whoop. Gone.
That was cool.
Alright, here's MJ.
Yeah.
Hey, we just teleported here. MJ, we are on channel.
Shell 2. Maybe the two of us should join the other group.
Yeah.
Three of us, I mean. Ah, hey.
Join group. Alright, I've become the leader. I did that by looking at Sempri and hitting the yes interaction key, joining group. That makes me a member of Sempri's group, and then I have an option on the self interaction key. Sorry, not the self interaction key, the interaction key again to become the leader of that group. So now I have the which is a bit funny because I'm number 6. Alright, so when we're moving in a forest area, in a wooded area, I would prefer, well, the main consideration in this case is the inability to see clearly the people around you because you have a lot of obstacle blocking your line of sight. So what you would prefer is also column formation. All right. So when we move in a forest, I would usually order a tight column formation. That is, of course, that only if contact is not likely in the near range, or the distance we're traveling is not covered by enemy presence. Okay. So if you move here, let's do it. We're gonna move like this. Okay. So when you move, you better do that in the radio because the formation is stretching. You call out the heading, okay? So the difference between a bearing and a heading, everybody knows what it is?
No, what?
Alright, I'm calling out the heading. Heading is the direction in which I am moving towards. Okay, so now the heading of the leader and the formation accordingly is 190. Let's bunch up here. So we're moving in a heading, okay? And what is a bearing? A bearing is a direction, arbitrary direction, which I'm pointing towards, usually when trying to point out an object or a target. That's where I say it bearing. And I know this not specifically applies to everybody, but I think I find value in separating between the two. So heading is the direction in which we're moving, and bearing is a reference to an object or a target. So we are heading we're heading 190, but we have a target on 220. Let's say this 3 trees there are a target. Better to stick to that separation because it makes things more clear. Okay, so let's cover other aspects. So until now we covered only the terrain. Okay, on local. If you don't hear me clearly, get close. So when enemy presence is in effect, and we have to take that into consideration as well, one needs to ask, well, the team leader needs to ask himself what is the direction I'm expecting to be engaged from, or to find enemies at. So if I'm moving towards an enemy, all right, I will. The best thing tactically would be we'll move in a line formation. Let's say I'm not exactly know where they are, but I know that contact is completely imminent. That's when I'm moving in a line formation. But what is the problem with the line formation?
It's hard to maintain.
It's hard to maintain because I have to constantly look right and left and make sure I'm keeping my relative position according to the other team members in place. And it's hard to do, and usually after a while it gets messed up. People tend, especially in the game world, due to the narrow field of view, get closer to one another, and then you get bunched up team that gets killed with a single grenade. So only when you are so what I'm trying to follow, the guideline I'm trying to follow, is order a line formation only when I know where the enemy is, I've gone closer enough, and now we're only doing the final push, like the final 70, 80, 60 meters before we actually engage, open up, or they will eventually detect us. Is that point clear?
Clear.
Clear.
It's clear to me.
Okay, so this is when so we covered the two edges of this axis. So when you're moving, you're not likely to engage, and the other end of the axis is when you're likely to be engaged. You know where you're pointing towards the enemy you want to destroy, and you line up. And of course, I'm not gonna mention, I guess everybody knows that we usually follow the E-roll rule, E-roll, which evens right, odds left. This is the way it's easier to remember. What I usually also do when I really like to split the team into sub teams, even if it's just a 4-man team. I select everybody using the tilde key on my keyboard, hit Control F1. That puts everybody on Team Red. Everybody should be on Team Red now. And now I simply select all the odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, and then I hit Control F3. Okay, that puts all the odds on Team Blue. That's the way I like to keep it. Of course, you can select whatever color you want for each of the teams, but that makes it easier.
A short aside, if you have FHQ group info loaded, which you should have, there is a function to split the team evenly into the whole group evenly into teams, so that if you split in two, you get odds in one color, evens in the other, or if you split in 3, it will evenly distribute among 3 teams, and so on.
The fuck? How do you do that?
Press your self-interaction key, group info, and then you should have the option if you're a team leader.
Nice.
So
I didn't know that.
Can we try this ourselves? Because we're not team leaders. Let's see it.
Yeah, you need to become team leader for that.
Yeah.
You just
take team leader, Mac. Self-interaction, team management, become leader. There you go. And now you have FHQ group info loaded?
I'm not sure about that. How can I check this?
Self-interaction, group info.
It says leave group, leave team, join.
No, not team management.
It's
Oh, group info. Yeah, okay. Group info. Okay, I've got quick assign clear team, quick assign 2 team, 3, 4, 5.
Yes,
So I make 2.
Yeah, you already split into 2 because I already assigned to 2. Try 3.
First I clean, and then I make 2.
You can immediately use 3. It will reassign them.
Okay, got it.
I was always proud on how fast I do it using the your regular interface, and now you blow it to me.
Yeah.
Okay, wonders of technology. So, so as you notice, it also keeps the rules of evens and odds. And by the way, if you have an AI in your team, he will also follow the evens and odds numbers. So if he's an even number, he will always tick to your right if you're moving in a line or a wedge formation. Okay, so now that we covered the 2 extreme conditions, let's cover the middle. What do I mean by the middle? Let's say I'm moving in an area and I expect the enemy to be in the front, which is the usual case. But I don't want to move in a line formation because that will mess up the formation and will be, oh, MJ just committed suicide. He just dropped to the ground dead.
Yeah,
Lots of blood. Yeah. Alright, so what you want to do is you don't want to move in a line formation because the problems we described earlier, and you don't want to move in a column formation. Why?
Oh,
Because you limit.
yeah.
Yeah, because if the contact will be ensued from the front, you won't have a lot of barrels pointing towards the enemy. Basically only one if it's directly at the front. And that's not good. We want to be able to respond quickly to enemy fire and have a wider berth of barrels pointing at them. So the middle ground here is a wedge formation. So wedge is easier than a line because you just have to keep the guy in front of you to the right of your screen or to the left of your screen. Wedges also have a tendency to become a very tight formation because people like to get closer to the guy they're trying to be in relation to. So that's also a problem, but if you bear that in mind, you can keep a wedge formation for extended periods of time, much like a column formation. So, so we were moving in a wedge. We keep the other team. Let's go. We keep the other guys. We keep the evens on the right and the odds on the left. We don't really keep the, if you move with an AI, that will really neatly follow your movement. The bigger the higher the number, the farther away they are in the formation. But this is very convenient with the AI. We don't really insist with that with playing with human players. So yeah, when you are moving as a leader, it's very important you check right and left from time to time, making sure no one is bunching up like I do right now. You can see my head moving left and right. But keep an eye at the front, because being the guy at the front, you will be the one likely to see the enemy first. So this is what I do. Let's bunch up here. Okay, so when I'm moving in an area, this is not the case which we covered first, right? We were in a friendly base, we were moving in a column just because it's the most convenient. If I have any likelihood of enemy contact, I will be moving, and the area is open, there's no doubt about it, at least when I'm leading, for me, this will be a wedge, and it will be a wide wedge, okay, to decrease a risk of getting fragged, and be able to respond quickly to enemy fire from the front. And now we have the other cases of moving in echelons, which I rarely use. But for example,
one question on the wedge, just how wide is wide?
Yeah, that's really determined by the terrain or the enemy, the type of enemy fire you're expecting. So if the area has a lot of obstacles that blocks your line of sight, I would keep it wider, meaning like 10 meters between each other, which is the safest. But if there are some obstacles and you expect the obstacles to prevent people from keeping their position in the formation, tidy it up a little. Just say tighten up the formation and people will tie it up and do it again and again until you're fine with it. I don't have a very strict answer to that. It's really depending on the situation.
Just to mention, remembering from my real life basic training, as a rule of thumb, we had 8 paces in between people in a standard formation when, well, in a patrol formation or something. Like at least 8 paces apart, everybody.
Yeah, sounds good.
Great.
All right, let's see if okay. So we rarely use the echelon formation, but imagine that. Let's see what we have here. Imagine that there is a ridge between this rock and the huts there on the southeast. All right, and that ridge rising to the right. And I want to move at the edge of the ridge and only peeking from time to time. I don't want the other team members exposing our position. I want to be the guy closest to that ridge. In that case, I'll move like this in order echelon left.
Okay, so you guys will be on my left. This is really when I'm using echelon left, but this is really extreme conditions. And the last but not least is the staggered column formation, which we're usually moving on a road, and we have the evens on the right side of the road and the odds on the left. But that is usually better maintained by assigning the groups, like having team green on the right side of the road and odds on the left, and then you do bounding overwatch between buildings like we did yesterday on the Infinity mission.
The last note on the echelon, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I sometimes like to slipped from the key. Sometimes like to use it when we're moving with when I'm leading a squad and moving with another team. The other team's leading, then I usually put my team on the opposite side of where I have the leading team. So I have an easier time to maintain distance to that other team because I don't have to account for people from my team being in between me and them.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Also, one more note about assigning sub teams, like color teams. It's a good practice to assign a team member for one element while you keep charge of the other element. So you'll be addressing a single person, not 3 or 4 people. It makes things easier, especially if people starting to get killed. All right.
It's easier for confirmations. Only the team leader needs to confirm, and not everyone else.
Indeed. All right, that's what I have on formations and movement. Who's next?
What's next on the list?
MJ, you want to do Bound in Overwatch?
Yeah, can do.
We are yours.
2 6. Follow me.
On you.
Alright,
So, we're here in this group of buildings. Nice cover. Our objective is somewhere off to the north, over a nice open field. Now, normally, we'd all take off at once and just run over the field, and if we got caught out there, probably die horribly. However, what we can do is leave an element behind, say, with us, say 4 men in the cover. As if we do this, then it leaves an element behind to cover us should everything go to shit. We can all run, the ones moving across the area can then immediately run for cover rather than trying to fight back from the open. This would probably be easier if I could demonstrate.
Sure. You can do it with 2 people and other people watching if you want.
Yeah, sounds. So if variable you want to start moving,
Copy.
Moving north.
Warren, you're the guy covering, so I'm going to fire a couple of shots in his general direction. I want him to variable when you hear the shots.
Copy.
So now, Warren, you'd start firing on the position.
On yours?
No, just on a mythical.
Right, check fire. Variable, come back.
We'll just use that as a practice run and do it properly this time.
Copy that.
I'll probably get behind this wagon here or something.
Yeah. Right, we'll use that as a practice run. This time everyone knows what's happening. So set off north. Variable. Set off north.
Go now.
On the move.
So variable is obviously our moving element, and a rogue enemy appears. Note how he spent no time
Covering.
in the open.
Right, check fire, come back.
Another point is when we're going for an attack. One thing I hate to see is your covering element firing, but then your maneuver element moving through the open ground. So in this case here, rather than your maneuver element moving directly north through the open ground, you could make it much safer for yourself and move this way, northwest, through the cover. It also clears the line of fire for your covering element as well. It makes friendly fire less dangerous. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I got one.
Go.
What about the amount of soldiers for the covering and the movement? Is there a specific number? If let's say I have 8, do I split them up? Or if I have 5, do I make 3 covers or 3 moving?
Well, with that even numbers, it's probably best to split it evenly. So in your 8 example, 4 and 4. But with that an odd number, you're probably best off putting your covering element to be the larger element. And then once your maneuver element are in position, they'll probably be closer to any likely enemy position, so we'll need less firepower overall.
Okay, and is this dependency also right if I have the other weapon types? Like, I don't know, a bigger machine gun for suppressing fire?
Yeah, machine guns are generally best left in your suppressing position.
Okay.
And marksman weapons and other longer range weapons. Ideally, an assault team would probably be all rifles with light equipment so they can move fast and then are effective close up.
Okay.
Any other questions?
What about if I want to keep this type of movement maintained over a distance?
In fact, that's a good point. There are two types of this movement. There's one which is called Caterpillar, and then there's Bounding Overwatch. So Caterpillar, your element would move out, and then once it reaches its position, the second element moves to it. Then with Bounding, your first element moves out. Once it's in position, the second element will bound past them to another position. Which you choose depends on how far you can see and what the likely threat is. The higher the threat, the more likely you are to choose Caterpillar.
There's a machine gun in the covering team.
Yeah. Anything else? Just be aware that this bounding overwatch isn't just for in contact. Before contact, and even when just moving in general, it's a good idea to do. If you have the time.
So basically you could say the caterpillar movement is good when you're in contact, and bounding overwatch is more suitable when you might expect contact.
Yeah. Yeah, the faster you need to move, the more likely you're going to use bounding. Also, as a point, you can take this to pretty much any scale. It could be 2 guys bounding, or it could be 2 entire teams, 2 platoons if we have them.
Well,
Right, unless anyone's got any other questions, I'm pretty much done with this.
okay, think away, I'll check the agenda.
I guess peeling is basically the same thing, but from left to right.
Kind of. Peeling's more an individual thing. So, if we line up facing north, as if we were, advancing in a line. So just come out to here.
Right, so if you say peel right gets called Evans, you would get up from whatever firing position you're in and run down to the far end. And then about 2 or 3 seconds after he's gone, Sempre, you go. And it carries on like that. And then if you leave maybe 5-10 meters gap between each other, you can cover space quickly while always having fire go down.
That's a pretty cool tactic. That's pretty neat.
So the call of right and left depends on where I'm looking at, right? Where are we heading at?
Yeah. So if So in this case, it's obviously right. The idea of a peel is so that you can keep firing in contact while also moving quickly to a position laterally from you.
One thing to note on that aspect is that, as in real life, enemy units you are firing towards and you are impacting near their position or above their heads will not be able to effectively engage you for two reasons. First, their accuracy is dramatically lowered. That goes for the AI in the game. And second, we have a mod which is called TPW cast that makes them go prone and go crouch and take cover.
Alright, just hold it there. In fact, peel left.
Moving. No, of course I can't sprint anymore. Moving.
Okay, but you have to take a look at how many are firing and how many are running. So if everybody is running and just 2 are firing, so this is, you have to consider these, right? This, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you don't run at once.
Yeah, you go one by one or element by element. That's the thing.
And do I call out when I'm at the end of the row as a soldier?
You can do. The way I do it is you tell the person next to you when you leave. They leave, depending on how many people there are, between 3 and 10 seconds, and then they leave.
Yeah, let's do it by calling out peeling when you get past the back of the guy who was next to you. In local, no need to use the comms for that, but just yell peeling, so he'll know he left your position, he's last.
Peeling?
And he will be the next to move.
Right. Let's regroup back at the sheds.
Interesting formation.
One last thing I've thought about is 360 yards at all levels. You know, whether you're a fire team or a section, a platoon, always make sure you cover all directions when you're not in contact. Well, even when you are in contact, you ideally want someone checking your flanks and your rear, because it'll prevent any nasty surprises. So, as a fire team, if you go static, then make sure one person's looking in each direction. Or if you're in a group with a larger force, then if no one's looking to the rear, you take your fire team to the rear and cover the rear or cover the flank, and you'll help out everyone. Alright, I think I'm done now.
Alright, let's do contact behavior now. That gets us back to formation movement. So what happens when you come under fire, which is considered a hard contact, and what happens when you see an enemy, which is regarded to as soft contact. Do I get this right in terms of terms?
Soft is when you're not yet detected. Hard is when they're firing at you.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe the most important rule, and maybe the obvious one, and yet not really practiced on our co-op nights, is that when you are under fire, you don't need permission to fire back. You will never be ordered to hold fire when the enemy is firing at you. That's simply inhumane, I'd say. Okay, so if you're under fire, don't ask for permission to return fire. Just return fire and report where you're getting fire from at. Okay, so this is for hard cover. You return fire, you report the enemy contact, and then you let the team leader do what he thinks to do best. And if you are the team leader, what you want to do is probably, depending on the mission type or the situation, it really comes down to a lot of different options now. But let's just say that if you want to keep on moving, you stick to bounty in Overwatch, and if you want to hold position, you're gonna take cover and fire back at the enemy and return fire. Alright, so this is hard cover. This is hard contact. What happens when you get a soft contact, meaning you or anyone else from your team members have reported an enemy contact who is not aware of your presence, okay, or not aware of your hostile intentions. What you want to do is you want to optimize your chances of winning the incoming engagement. So that at that point you will position your team in firing positions, hopefully under hard cover or around hard cover, and make sure everybody, all the target data is relayed to all members of your unit, meaning everybody knows what the enemies, where are the enemies, what's their equipment, and what are you going to do about them. And preferably, and that's the optimal condition, that's the optimal status, which is each and every team member has a different target. That means when you open up, all the enemy targets will drop down, won't end up everybody shooting at the same guy or somewhere in between. Anyone want to elaborate on that?
When you're with the soft contact one, I suggest your first guy to fire is whatever machine gun you have. In pretty much all fights, your machine gunner should be your main focus.
Could you repeat the last sentence, MJ?
Yeah, in pretty much all fights, your machine gunner should be your main focus. At least against infantry, because your main yeah, your firepower comes from your machine gun. Everyone else is just there to keep the enemy away.
Cool. Yeah, I wish we could make this suppression more pronounced in the game. Any way to do that? FHQ.
No idea, to be honest.
I wanted to hit the deck and be completely confused and scared but shitless for their lives. But that's a different matter.
Also, with their hard contact, depending on where you are, should be how you react. So, if you're out in the open, your immediate response should be to bound to cover. If you're already in cover, then you can stand and fight. But if you're caught out in the open, then you do everything possible to get to cover. Because nobody wins a fight standing out in the open.
Except Batman.
Yeah, but none of us are Batman.
Yeah, sadly.
Oh, I thought you said Macman, sorry.
No, Batman.
Windblade, however, would win. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Can we
Windblade wouldn't
port
be caught in
X-Master
the
over here?
open.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Can you get X-Master over here?
Yeah, he's not yet in.
Yeah, I thought about doing a navigation. I think the biggest challenge is navigation. 'Cause I'm not really certain how to do that.
You mean finding where you are or something like that without using a GPS and all that stuff?
Yeah.
I've been
Well.
practicing a lot on my own.
You could just teleport us to a random spot and we have to triangulate.
Sure, can try that, yeah. Just,
I don't know if the game world is exactly the place to do that, but you know, in such a session, let me think. Let's see if we have other topics which are easier. Hang on.
Fuck is wrong with variable?
Yeah,
Hey, everybody.
I was
Hey.
all tabbed, so Trekar freaked out.
Yeah, you looked pretty out-tapped to me.
Hey, X-Master.
Hey, good evening.
hey.
Okay,
Well, one
so
thing
are
you
we
can
done
do
for
here-
tonight? No, I'm just
Oh, wait,
joking.
one thing you can do here is, I mean, you don't see a lot, but what you can see is definitely that there are buildings here, and you see the mountains. In the distance here, you notice that there's a mountain in north and northwest of you, and buildings. There's also a mountain east of us. So basically, you look at the map and try to find a possible place for that. And Macman already spoiled it.
I'm sorry
man.
for being late, but this is exactly what I'm missing in ARMA, just basic navigation with the map. How do you know what's a mountain or not in the map?
If you take a look at, you see Macman's marker, X-Master? About down from the middle of the map, yeah.
Yep, I see it.
Alright, so you see the lines. Wait, you know what? Hang on. There's a great mod that emphasizes the topographical lines, which are basically the lines that tell the height of a certain line in real world.
If
So-
you switch off the map texture, you see them also quite well.
Yeah, so on the top right you have a button that says toggle map texture.
Toggle texture.
Yeah, so turn off the texture so it'll be whitey.
Yep, got it.
Okay, so you see the hill to our east. It's hill 401. That's how you identify hills in real life as well. So if hill 401 is the hill which its peak is at 401 meters above sea level.
Got
Okay,
it.
so that hill, if you zoom out a little bit, you'll see its shape. Okay, and the shape is determined by the way the lines converge around it. So if you see the next number downwards from that hill, it's 362. See that?
Looking.
They-
B62.
Actually, it's a point 362. 362 is also a hill because it's like a pointing out finger out of the hill. But let's look on the other line standby. Yeah, well, it's not really a topographical map because topographical map tells you the height of the lines on the fucking lines, and here it tells you only the points of the hilltops, which is pretty stupid. But you have to. What you need to do is have a look at the number and the lines around it. So the lines around it can be higher or lower from that point. They are usually lower because points usually are describing peaks. Do I make myself
Got it.
clear?
Yep.
Okay, so you see the lines expanding outwards. Each line has the same height all around it. So when the lines starting to expand outwards, it forms the shape of the hill. That's why you have that hill. If you actually look at it, it's to the northeast. See it. You see the hill is like it's more like a ridge expanding from the south to the north. More likely southeast to the northwest if you look on the map and you are in a better position to, yeah, there you go. You see what Vernon is marking?
Yep.
Because the lines, if you see, they are stretching to that direction. Once you get to look at it, it's pretty, makes a lot of sense. And this is really a good a good opportunity to see, because you have two peaks, the peak 401 and peak 373 here. In the middle, you have some kind of depression. You can also see it by peaks 359 and 362. They are lower from 401 and 373. That is called the saddle, ukaf in Hebrew. Okay, because it forms a shape of a saddle. So you see, you have two peaks, in between them a depression which is also higher from the general terrain around it. So this is a saddle. So you say, you see team, you see that saddle on the northeast, go there, for example. That's how you use it. Let's have a look on this. You see the line I'm marking? Let me draw it. You see that?
Yep.
Okay, if I will go from our position, which is here, and I go like this, I will start climbing up the hill, okay, until I reach that point. From that point onwards, I will start climbing down the hill. You see that now?
Yep.
Okay, so that thing, fuck, I forgot the term in English. This is a guy in Hebrew. In
a ridge line, basically.
I wouldn't say, no, that's not a ridge line. That's more like a crest, isn't it?
It's a spur.
It's a spur, and what's the difference between a spur and a crest? Remind me.
So a crest would be the top of the hill, whereas a spur is like a pointer out from the hill, almost. Hard to find the word. It's almost like a crest going down the hill.
Right. So the stuff that makes the leg of the hill is actually the crest. So this is the crest. And the things that are between crests are called ravines. Let's have a look here. You see it here? Northwest of our position.
See it.
Alright, so this thing, we draw it in a different color. So you look. Wait, this is fucked up. Hang on. Okay, so this thing is a ravine. If you could see, if you look at it, you see it's lower. It's lower. It's like a dent in the hill. You have one crest here and one crest here, and this is lower. You can also see there is vegetation there. Why there is vegetation there?
Because the
Was
water
it
is
slower
going there.
because of the water?
Correctamundo! Yeah, because the water converged there and you have more vegetation there. So ravines are like, in Hebrew you say like, you sometimes refer to them as rivers, like Nachal, right? When you have a mountain and it's got ravines coming out of it, or coming down of it. So this is a ravine, and we have two crests, one here and one here. Ridge is more like something is more steeper. I don't know if we have if you take a look here, zoom out all the way out, you'll see where I'm pointing. Around here. Yeah, so this is definitely a ridge. You see how how the lines are close to one another, which means like a very steep curve, like a very steep climb. It's impossible to climb such a thing.
But that's not a ridge. The ridge is just the
cliff.
edge. Yeah, the ridge is just the edge of the.
No. Yeah, I'm not
The
marking
contour
everything.
of
Right.
No,
Right.
what you showed there is basically a ravine. I wouldn't normally call a normal valley a ravine, because ravine usually refers to something a bit tighter and deeper.
So
This is a ravine, for example.
What I just marked, that hill to our east, is a ridge.
Yeah.
An elongated hill.
which one? Where's your marker?
The one along the top of the hills to our east.
Basically what you call a saddle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but
the saddle is
the saddle is the thing between. This is the saddle, and it's located on the ridge. All this is a ridge for sure. Yeah, not arguing that. This is a ridge. What I'm marking now like crazy. In the middle of the ridge, you have a saddle. You have 4 peaks on it, or 2, 4, 5 peaks on it. Okay, and the fuck was that?
That's my marking of the ridge.
Fuck.
Nice.
Wouldn't be smoke or something more appropriate?
No, that was more fire.
Whatever
Alright.
works.
Smoke is for pussies.
Right.
Okay, we're pointing right now. Oh, that's not the tree. Hang on. So this is the saddle between 2 peaks. Okay. I think that's it.
Also, what we should say is that these lines are lines of the same height. So, if you zoom in completely, they are spaced at 1 meter intervals. So, from one line to another line, the line rises or falls 1 meter. If you zoom out slowly, you will notice that at one point the lines in between disappear. That means then it's 5 meters between the lines, and so on.
Yeah.
It always goes a bit higher.
Yeah, and
The
that's why when you
contour
zoom in-
interval.
Yeah, and that's why when you zoom in, if the lines are very dense and close to one another, that means a steep climb or a steep downhill.
Now, one thing I didn't understand is the line you marked in blue. You said it's the lowest point, but it converts on a few lines. The river line you marked?
You see, take a look, for example, on this line. You see the line I'm marking right now? Hang on. Okay, you see
Yep.
that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the altitude of this line is 270 meters above sea level. Maybe a bit lower than that, but it's almost, let's say 260 meters. That's definitely lower than the one here, than the peak here. You see? Because it's
Yep,
344. So these little hints tell you whether this is an incline or a decline. In this case, it's a decline in height because it's lower than the environment around it.
If you look at the blue line, it follows the turning points, basically. The points where the lines turn around. And that's usually means that's the point of the highest slope. So that's why this blue line basically goes fastest downhill.
Let's say if there was water flowing down, it would follow the blue line.
And that's why you have vegetation there, because waters do follow those lines.
Which is also usually why you see more trees growing in those things.
Okay, another interesting fact is that in the northern aspects of mountains you don't see vegetation at all. Why is that?
Lack of sunlight.
Exactly. That's why the company North Face is called North Face, because the north face of a mountain is the face which is harder to climb on. So the hardcore climbers climb from that side.
Never stop exploring.
Another interesting fact is that most church entries are on the eastern side.
Oh, good to know.
Most, not all of them, but most.
Why is that?
I have no idea. I'm an atheist.
One good thing
Yeah.
to remember as a leader is it's a good idea to travel low and fight high. I.e., when you travel, you use the lowest possible route, and then when it comes time to fight, you fight from the high ground. It means that when you're moving, you're less likely to be spotted, but then when you're up top on the hills, you have the biggest line of sight possible.
Yeah, in the Israeli military, I'm not sure. Maybe it differs between different military organizations, but the rule of thumb is to travel in 2/3 of the altitude of the hill you're moving at. You don't want to move as low as you can, as low as possible, because you don't want, if you are getting engaged, you don't want to be in a disadvantage. And so the general rule of thumb is 2/3. But I don't know, I guess it comes to different flavors and preferences.
Okay, that kind of raises some questions for me. When you say 2/3 and where's a hill, like what denotes a hill and where does it become a mountain? And I mean, this is an important difference, right? Because when I'm 2/3 down a mountain, I still have a highway to climb if I want to fight from the top. And so what's a hill?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that applies for big ass mountain. It's more like a hill, like you have in Israel, which is exactly like some like you have here. So if you look on hills here,
Typically like 100 to 300 meters.
no, well, it more affects like you're moving. I think you are moving in a valley. You don't want to move in the lowest point in the valley. You'd prefer to move in a 2/3 height of the valley. But this is really a very, very general, guideline. Try to apply a lot of common sense into it and apply it to the situation you're at.
Wow, this has been very helpful. Definitely opened
Yeah.
my eyes to the map reading. XMS, I don't know, because you're kind of new at this as much as I am. I noticed that when you look at the map, the compass always points the direction you're facing. So like, there's a ruler on the map. So when you look at the map and you're facing north, you can kind of like use that to help triangulate. You could see that the ruler is aligned with the position, with the direction you're facing.
Isn't it always facing north?
No. If you face east, you'll see that the compass moves east. And then face a different direction, and go back to the compass, and you'll see.
Oh
the
yeah, I
compass.
saw it. Yeah, yep.
Okay.
He talks about the needle.
The
you
red line.
face.
Yeah, the red
Yeah.
needle.
Yeah, the needle.
And the case more specifically, because on the side of the case you see this ruler basically. That means you can use that to determine direction and even distance.
Yeah, use that? I never used that. Because it
Sorry,
doesn't-
I missed it. Tell me again. Didn't get it.
If you go to the map, you see the compass. You can drag it around. You see it, Magman?
Yeah.
But the cover here, what's the length of the line here? It's not like the same as the scale.
The scale is on the bottom right. You see
Yep,
the-
I'm just saying the length here is not the same. So how do you measure with it?
You eyeball it. It's not an exact measuring.
Isn't that map tool from ACE usable in that way? Like it scales with the map.
Yeah, that scales with the map. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to use that, but if we learn how to use it, it will be extremely helpful, especially for mortar and you know, JTAC stuff.
Stack and me used it in one of the missions where we had a mortar.
MacMan, do you see where the compass? Do you see what it does?
Well, it doesn't turn or something. If I'm in the
No,
map.
when look at the direction you're facing north right now. So
Yeah.
turn east and face east.
What you look at is the red needle.
Right. And then look at the compass again on your map. You'll see that the compass turned.
Yeah.
I noticed that, which I've been practicing, is I use the ruler to help triangulate. So when I pick two spots, I can draw myself a line.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which then gives me a pretty good idea of where we're locating. So like you just said, variables, you pick 2 points, the 2 hilltops or 2 mountaintops, and then you can use the ruler to help draw yourself a line, and you should be able to triangulate from there.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So this map goes in a box. If you want to see how it is used, I can tell you.
Cool. One thing about engaging from the top in ARMA, that doesn't really apply to real life. Well, partially applies also in real life, but some factors makes it a less appealing option in the game world. If you're attacking from the top, especially. Yeah, you stole my thunder there.
Sorry.
So when you're attacking from the top, well, the advantage in real life when attacking from the top, one of the advantages is that the enemy doesn't really have a hard time resting his weapons on the ground and other objects in order to aim back at you. Okay, they have to keep the muscles pointing at you know, in the air, thus extending their their fatigue and denying them the ability to rest their weapon on something solid to increase their to better their accuracy. And when you think I'm coming down with a full team from this hill, okay, think how visible I am for people on this compound where we're at now, and how easily we're getting picked off from there. So engaging from hilltop is really tempting, but when you are climbing down from the hilltop, you're a really easy target. So just bear that in mind when you're leading a team. And what Vernon showed you, that yeah, I didn't really come to the conclusion what I just said. So the fuck, man. Anyway, so when you are all the way prone, the AI has no problem, or humans don't have any problem doing like this. That's really not possible.
Advanced yoga shit.
Yeah, that really pisses me off. I actually opened a bug here already on ARMA 2, but they ignored it. So it's really easy for them to go prone and fire and have the advantages of being prone and fire, although their elbows are completely detached from the ground. So you don't have the advantage you'd have when you life when facing opponents downwards from you.
So what's the advantage then?
Well, the advantage is that you're easily, you see them clearly, you see them better. Okay, you have less obstruction in terms of line of sight with targets that are below you, but that goes for them as well. So just bear that in mind.
It's a game aspect that you have to live with, really.
Yeah.
All right. If everyone grabs the map tool from the crate, I can tell you how it works.
All right.
First of all,
grab the vector 21. We can go over that as well.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where they are, right? They can be in the backpack for all sorts of purposes and still work, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You said a map tool. What is the vector? Where's it?
It's Binox.
Binox. Vector 21 or Vector 21.9.
Got it. Got it.
All right. for the map tools to work, you need to do something first, and that is entering the ACE option. In the ACE options, you see a setting, rotate map tool key. I think it's by default is on control, but control won't work because that interferes with the ARMA internal line drawing. So I put it on shift.
Okay, so just go to your settings. I mean, escape, configure, controls, select.
No, not in the controls. Not in the controls. It's stupid. It's in the ACE options. If you press escape, you have the ACE options on the top left corner of your screen.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I
So
never
just
saw
escape
that
and then
button
S
ever.
options.
I've never saw the menu till now.
What the fuck?
There's a rotate map tools key.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. By default, it's on
Alt.
Alt.
Yeah, the Alt and Control do not work because we have the Control is the Bohemia map drawing,
Yeah.
and Alt is our pointing. So I put it on Shift.
Got
I
it.
don't see it.
Rotate.
Now
Did you find the menu?
Scroll a bit.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Is all categories the one I should use?
Scroll down a little bit. You'll see rotate. Hang on, where is it? Rotate map tools.
Got
key.
it, got it. It's out.
Yeah, change
Put
it
it
to
to
shift. Oh, now I get it. Yeah, now it works. This is awesome.
Okay.
You can do triangulation stuff with this.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, what I
If you go
just...
to the map now. Go ahead, Mark.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. What you say?
Oh no, what I just noticed is when you draw along the map tool, it the map tool acts as a ruler.
Okay, on the map you can use the interaction key and then open the map to small or large, depending what you want. The tool can be moved by just clicking on it and moving it around, and it can be rotated with shift and mouse movement. You can also automatically, with a menu, automatically snap into the direction of your view.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
I don't see it.
You need to enable it on the map.
You need to
You
enable
press
it, yeah.
self-interaction on the map screen, self-interaction and equipment, I think.
Map tool.
Map tool.
Yeah, I did show a map tool and I didn't see anything change on my map.
Zoom
Zoom
out,
out.
Got
It's in
it.
the left corner.
then drag it around,
Yeah, yep,
drag it
I see it.
around, and use shift.
Yeah, I see.
You see the inner circle is normal decrease, and the outer circle is mills.
Yeah.
Also, as Manuel said, that if you press Control and draw along the edges, one of the edges of the tool, you will make a completely straight line.
Yeah, that's not really consistent though. It's more like a bug. Yeah, it comes out in different directions.
It works for me.
This is cool. Oh, wow.
This tool is pretty useful, especially if you have to gauge distances over long, gauge directions over long distances. For example, if you had a mortar somewhere, you would put the circle on the mortar, and then you can use the mills. You just point it to the target and can use the mills for the aligning the mortar.
Oh, I see what you mean about those lines. When you can't delete them afterwards, can you?
You
Or
can.
just-
You can.
You can only delete
How?
your own.
You
Yeah,
just
but
need
you
to get the
delete
middle
everything.
of it, and then your name pops up, and then you have to can delete it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's in the middle, right? Copy. Yeah, we can all see them. Yeah. That would be great for that mission. What's that football mission called?
Yeah, I know which one you mean. Yeah. Also, the scale on the side 0, 1, 2, 3 is in kilometers, I think. It definitely fits one of the squares, so it's probably 100 meters. No, 100 is too. Not exactly sure how big it is, but you see, it aligns with the square, so it's probably a kilometer.
Let me check.
Yeah, should be. And the smaller ones are 100 meters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point, by the way, guys. If you zoom all the way out, you see big, very large squares, right? These are 10 click squares. Yeah, 10 clicks.
Yeah.
Yes. These are 10 click squares, right? 10 kilometers each. If you zoom in the next level, you see smaller squares. These are kilometers each. Like squared kilometers. Okay, if you further zoom in, these will break down to squares of 100 meters each. And if you see on the right and left, that will take us to the grid. Okay, you see the grid is separated. Those lines of 100 meters are each indicated by the number on the right and upwards grid.
See it.
Everybody see that?
Yes.
Yep. X-Master asked me about that, so this is what it is. You see that?
I didn't follow. I'm sorry.
You see the grid. If you zoom all the way out, you see squares. These squares, when you zoom all the way out, these are 10 kilometers each. 10 kilometers square. Okay?
You're talking about in the map tool itself?
No, fuck the map tool. Yeah, I'm talking about the map. If you zoom all the way out.
Oh yeah. I've already used the squares before for GPS navigation, I think, maybe.
Yeah, so if you further zoom in, these squares, these 10 kilometer squares will be broken down into 1 square kilometer each. And if you further zoom in, this will become 100. When it becomes 100, you see a lot of numbers on the grid, on the upper grid, on the horizontal grid on the right and left. Okay, so these numbers correspond to the grid reference of the ARMA system. It has nothing to do with real life. It's just an internal game mechanic. So the first number you actually.
So the GPS actually shows you those numbers, and it's not altitude and longitude. It's just a grid number.
Well, you have altitude as well in some GPSs. Like now, if you look at on the ACE GPS, it says 87. That's our altitude above sea level.
I don't think I have a GPS here.
You know, if you go to the map, you see a GPS, like a green monitor with the numbers in it. That's your GPS.
I don't see any green monitor on my map.
You sure about
that? You need to have a GPS, an actual GPS. If you don't have one, then it will not show up.
Yeah, take it.
Wait, I put some in the box.
Is there one on the... Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Something else about these squares. Sometimes it's useful to reference a specific point or a specific sector inside the square. some people use the so-called keypad coordinates for that. If you imagine the keypad of your computer being overlaid on a map, then the lower left corner of a square is number 1, and the upper right is number 9. So you can reference a sub-square by giving the keypad coordinates. Understood?
Understood.
Yep.
I'm looking. Oh, there's the GPS.
Yeah, but usually if you are able to determine your position in that accuracy, simply your cursor will be able to give you a grid reference.
Yeah,
And your altitude.
For example, if you want to give a pilot a specific point where you want him to attack, for example.
Yeah, any idea what that number on the top left corner of the GPS receiver? That's my bearing? Yeah, it's my bearing. Yeah, which is pretty stupid because GPS shouldn't tell you that the bearing you're looking at, it doesn't have the slightest clue unless you're moving in that direction. So
What's the number of the right
completely
top,
unrealistic.
by the way?
That's your altitude above the mean level, sea level.
Some GPSs do have a compass built in.
Yeah, that's a navigation system. That's no longer a GPS. That's a inertial navigation system with gyros and stuff.
No, I have a handheld compass GPS which has a compass.
Yeah, okay. So you have a GPS and a compass. that's not GPS.
No, I mean it's a GPS and it has a built-in compass. I have a watch with a built-in compass.
Yeah, that's okay. We have compasses. It's something that exists, but the GPS solely can't tell you that. The global navigation system can tell you your heading. It simply can't.
Yeah, but you can get GPSs which have a built-in compass.
Yeah, of course. You have a lot of navigation system with all kinds of stuff, like that it also tells you your speed over water or in relation to the air. But it has a lot of other components which are not GPS to fulfill that.
All right,
Did you see this one?
What?
Look at here.
Where are you?
Here.
Ah, okay. It's at the
You see that
periscope.
thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can watch over the
What
wall
the
of that.
fuck?
Oh
Yeah.
my god, that's great.
It's actually pretty cool. I never knew that this actually existed.
Oh, we should use that for our missions.
Yeah, and then you can use this way.
Can you extend it or something?
No, it's a binocular basically. Maybe you can even want to do testing.
Yeah, sometimes when people talk on the radio, they are not heard on local. I couldn't spot where you're talking from because I heard you only on my earpiece. You were close enough.
Yeah, we're behind the wall.
Oh, okay. All right. Anything
Hold
else
on, a
about the
question
map?
about the GPS. Is it first horizontal lines and then vertical lines, the number?
X and Y, like in
It's-
a mathematical system.
Yeah.
So X across, and then the
Got
first
it.
three are across, and then the next are upwards.
Along the corridor and up the stairs.
Yeah. Alright, let me do a short introduction on the vector because that's quite interesting.
By the way, it's
Everybody-
completely the opposite from real life.
Everybody has a vector?
I do.
Alright, for the vector you need two keys. By default is R and tab. You need to check in the settings dialog what you have mapped there. But basically, if you press tab, you see degree in the vectors display. That's just your compass bearing. If you press R, you will you'll see a small circle appear in the middle, in the center. And if you release R, it will tell you the distance to that circle.
Really cool.
Alright, that's the basic function of the vector. However, it has more. For example, it can tell you both of them at the same time. You can press them both and get basically the same information. Also, it allows you to measure the horizontal difference between 2 points. That's done like this. You tap R once and then press and hold it until the red circle appears. So once and then press and hold it. Then you move the circle up to another point and release it. It tells you the difference.
Say it again, how do you do it?
You press R once shortly and then press and hold it until the red circle appears.
What?
And then you
Tap and hold.
Then you move the you look at another point and release the R key. And it will display 2 numbers. It will display the distance and it will display the vertical height difference between the 2 points.
Okay, but you have to do it fast, the tapping and then the holding. You have to do it fast after each other, because if you wait too long, it doesn't show anything, just one number.
Yeah, you need to just tap R key and then hold it.
Got it. You have to do it really fast, yep.
Yeah, the same thing works with the tap key. If you tap once and then press and hold it, you will see inclination value along with the compass bearing.
Cool.
That's quite useful if you want to tell someone where, if you spotted something when it's up a hill, for example, you can give them the exact bearing and the elevation to the target.
This is really cool.
Alright, next thing is the distance between 2 points. You can measure the distance between 2 points with the vector. For that to work, you press and hold R until the red circle appears. Then you move the circle to the first object and tap the tap key once. But you need to hold R. Keep holding it. You should see something like 1P displayed in the vector. And when you then move to the second key and release the R key, it shows you the distance between these 2 points.
So it's basically.
I see. Wow, that's pretty neat.
So it's basically the it shows the difference from the first part where you said you tap R. It already counts it for you. You don't have to count it yourself.
You press and hold R, and then you set the circle that appears on the first point, and press tap once shortly. That will lock in the first point. If you then move the vector to the next point and release the R key, it will tell you the difference, the distance between these 2 points.
By meters.
In meters, yeah.
That's really neat.
So again, the first one with the single click on the R and then the long click, wasn't it the same thing?
No, you press and hold the R. Just press and hold it until the red circle appears.
It's not what he means.
Then you.
He means that the result is the same. You get the difference, but at this first thing which you explained us, it's the difference without calculating it. It just says from x to y, and this method you showed us now is like z. It's a difference between x and epsilon. It shows it directly.
The point is the first thing was the the difference, decrease difference in from your position. That means if you look at the base of the hill and then move 30 degrees up, it will display 30 degrees. But that obviously is depending on your position. The other thing is it really you have, if you for example want to measure the distance between the two peaks, you can do that on a map, but you can also do it here with a vector. You just press and hold R, aim it at the first peak, tap once, and then move to the second peak and release R, and it will tell you exactly how many meters apart these two peaks are. Note that this is completely independent from where you're standing. It doesn't take your position into account.
Okay, got it now.
Got it. So the first method was just showing the height and comparing it with your height. Second one was the same with degrees, and the third one was measuring the distance between 2 points, right?
Yeah, the thing with inclination, for example, is useful if you want to say I see movement or I see a vehicle on the hillside. You can say it's 2/3 up, for example, or something like that. But you can also say it's 30 degrees up, and that's going to be very precise measurement. Okay, I think that basically sums it up. There are some more functions. You can check the web page on it, but most of the other functions are pretty specific.
What's the yardage?
Isn't that the spotting scope?
There's a rangefinder.
Yeah, it's basically the same.
Rangefinder works differently, right? It's not the same.
No, well, both use laser in order to measure the range.
Oh yeah, I was talking about ARMA perspective. I mean, it works differently.
What works differently than what?
Pathfinder, you just use tab and it gives you the distance.
Yeah, the laser rangefinder's just a rangefinder.
Yep.
And that's the yard gauge, this
Yeah.
I'm talking about? Alright, so it doesn't have a jar. Yeah, it can say, it doesn't compute angles. That's the thing.
No, the
Yeah,
vector is
just
definitely the most universally usable tool for measuring distance or angles. It can even give you, if you tap the tab key 5 times in a row, it will let you select the units. It normally displays in degrees and meters, but you can also switch it to mils and feet. The mils is mandatory if you're operating a mortar, because degrees are just too imprecise for measuring that correctly.
Also, the vector can be coupled with the dagger, with the micro dagger. But that's completely. I think that needs a complete training session just for this shit.
Yeah.
Alright.
The
Let's see
vector
if
can
we
also calculate race and movement of a mortar, like how to if you need to drop the thing 5 mils and move it to the right for 5 mils, something like that. But that's also quite specific.
Can anything else we left out apart from comms courtesy?
I think that was pretty much everything.
Alright, let's do comms courtesy. I think everybody are already pretty well versed in it. quick explanation in case someone doesn't remember. Alright, so when I communicate, I first use my own call sign to indicate who's speaking, and next is the addressee, meaning who's the element I'm trying to speak with, and then I shut up and let him reply. For example,
Bravo Delta.
okay, so who am I?
Bravo.
No.
Yeah, you said it the wrong way actually. You said that you start with your own call sign, but you meant, of course, you start with the addressee's call sign.
Yes, I confused you. So I start with the element I'm trying to speak with, and then I end with my own identity. So if I say Bravo Delta, that means I'm calling Bravo, and I am Delta. All right. If you want to emphasize, you can just say Bravo Delta and end with it. But if you want to emphasize and make sure Bravo is listening, you can, I don't know, you said something like, this is Bravo calling Delta, to make them listen. But usually it's enough to say Bravo Delta. Okay, and then you transmit your message once they reply. How they reply, they simply can say Bravo. Alright, so for example, let's do it this. Let's say Sempri is Delta and I am Bravo, okay?
Delta Bravo.
Go ahead, Bravo.
Okay, you can reply like this. You can also say simply Delta. That means I am Delta and I am listening. You can go ahead and say what you want to say. Okay, and now I start my transmission, the content. Speak freely. You can use some COM codes if you're familiar with them and you like the immersion. It's helpful because it makes things neat. But if you're not familiar with them, no problem. Just speak freely as you are in real life. And just one thing, if the message is very long, try to limit it. Okay, like for example, how do you say in English if the message is too long? How do you separate it between several parts? Break?
Yeah, break.
Yeah, break. Okay, so I say I'm going from A to B and then moving to A to 4 and then I'm engaging 3 to 6. Break. Okay, so when I say break, it tells the other part that I have more stuff I want to tell him, but I don't want to overburden him. So I just want to make sure if he got the stuff I said up until now and he understood them correctly. Okay, so when I say break, he replies. What he replies? Just Roger or something like that? Doesn't really matter, right?
Normally you don't reply at all to break.
Shouldn't you say continue?
I don't know, in the Navy we use something, but obviously it's not going to apply in English.
No, we just leave it. You just leave a gap, a few seconds gap, and then continue.
Alright, so I say break, I take a breathe, and then I continue my message.
Yeah, and that allows anyone else to throw stuff in if they need it as well. Say if they've come under contact, it will give them a little bit of space to tell everyone.
Yeah.
Alright, anything else on this matter? Any questions you have about communication?
If you're done, I would add stuff, especially readbacks.
Yeah, go ahead now.
Okay, I'm talking.
Was it transmitting? I don't have a military background.
You're trying to speak, we can hear.
So this difference a bit from area to area. I'm most familiar with European procedures and to some degree with US procedures. what you do when you receive a message is you read it back. So this means you repeat what has been said to you, and therefore you give the person that sent the message to you a chance to check that you really understood it and reduce the chance of failure. So obviously this is not always going to be practical in this under the conditions we are operating here, because there might just simply not be time. But so you'll have to use some judgment there. But generally, I think it's a very good habit to have to read back at least the most important stuff. So let's say you get a target report, something, there's infantry, direction 320, 300 meters, they're behind that tree or whatever. I would just say contact infantry 320, 300, something like that. So when I say I'm most familiar with European procedures, less so with American, again, this is aviation, this is not necessarily combat, but in Europe we generally read back everything that we get. There's like one exception that I don't remember, and it doesn't matter because nobody has a problem with you reading it back anyways. In America you only need to read back 3 specific things that I also don't remember, because as a general rule you can just read back anything and it's also not going to offend anyone. So this should tell you that reading back messages is a good idea.
Yeah, especially when the transmission is complex.
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
also have it contextualized. So if manual tells me move up to the edge of the compound and defend, I would just reply, let's say I'm Bravo, okay? So he tells me, Bravo Alpha, move to the edge of the compound and defend the entrance. Then I would reply, Roger, moving and defending, okay? So that gives him the assurance that I received the intention he was trying to convey to me.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said earlier, we're operating under time pressure very often here, especially when in contact. So it makes a lot of sense to not read back everything, but like Variable just said, if he replies Roger going to defend, something like that, it tells me that he understands what I want from him. And yeah.
Could also tie it to a specific word, like if you want to have a read back, you say please confirm or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I would make it a general habit to read back stuff when the time's there. If not, just contextualize it, or at least say Roger. And if I want to make sure that somebody understands precisely what I want from him, typically when it's something more complex, then I would say something like please confirm.
Like confirm moving into position to defend, something like that.
Yeah, well, the team leader asks you to confirm. That means then once you hear please confirm, you are going to tell him exactly what he asked you to.
Okay.
And that tells me that we should better cover contact reports. We have a lot of variations. It doesn't really say that everybody has to, use a certain format or something like that, but it would be really helpful if we will try to at least be unified in that sense. So if I see a target and I want to report it, how do I do that? Okay, so the way I do it is first I call out the bearing. Why the bearing? Because the bearing is the most important piece of data. People could already look at that direction before you even complete the transmission and then see for themselves. So that's the most important thing. So you always start with the bearing to the target. Okay, so bearing to the target. The bearing to the target, well, the direction to the target doesn't have to be the bearing like a compass bearing 170. Sometimes it could only be like front right, right, and so forth. Okay, so if the contact is very close to you, all right, you will go by front, front right, right, or front, front left, left, or of course rear. Okay, anything which is to your rear, even if to the rear, to the right, and to the right, we would say rear because it's really emergency situation. So rear would cut it. So if it's close contact, you start by saying front or front right or right. So we have contact, front, something like that. All right. If the contact is not very near, let's say above 50 meters or about 100 meters, you would call it by bearing. So I have a bearing. Okay, I have a contact bearing 200. I would say contact 200 infantry 300 meters. Okay. So the rest of the transmission is what did I see there and what's the range. The range could be only an assumption. And just take my advice. I know it's hard for a lot of beginner players to assess ranges in the game. Just go with whatever you feel like. Okay, if you think it's 50 meters, say 50 meters. People will correct you and you'll learn by trial and error. So don't be afraid about it.
Yeah, especially if sorry.
Go ahead.
Like if you're not sure and you say something that's off by 50 meters, 100 meters, it's not that bad. But if you can give a general idea, like if contacts are 500 meters away, it's a whole lot different than if they're 50 meters away. So if you just kind of convey that general idea that contacts are either far away and no imminent danger, or they are really close and it's about to get hot, that's already very important and very much better than saying nothing at all about distance.
Yeah. I would post at the bottom of TeamSpeak now the page to our website with the standard operating procedures. It pretty much covers everything we talked about, maybe except Bounding Overwatch and the vector stuff. But please do a read through of that, even if you're familiar with the stuff. It really helps to have things unify, and having things unifying in one team has value of its own. So please go ahead and give it a read.
Will do.
One thing that we should also do, I don't know if we want to do it now or later, is commanding vehicles, like commanding a tank platoon.
Yeah, MJ wanted to do that. Anything else, fellas?
It's maybe a bit much for today, but it's maybe a good idea to at some point cover JTAG communication, stuff like that. I mean, we don't do it that often, but sometimes.
It's pretty specific, I would say, and not necessarily something for the team leader. It's more generic.
What about using mortars, by the way?
Oh yeah, no one knows except Stag. Yeah,
so
Vanna
maybe we
knows
should
well, though.
cover that then.
What about the N-law?
Oh yeah, right.
Actually, the last mission with the S.
We did that, didn't we?
I wanted to say that the tracer round that worked perfectly. So thanks for the heads up on that.
Cool. What about the N-law? Didn't we do a training about that?
I remember doing one. We were shooting at moving targets.
Yeah, no one hit. No one.
Yeah, no one hit. Right. That was the last training session.
Yeah, it's not. It's. I hate to say it, but I don't think it works properly. You know that the mechanic is there, but they need to tweak it because it always go. It seems like it's not compensating enough for the